Guess we're ready. You're listening to and watching Star Wars Splash Page Comics in Review.
This feels very awkward. We're on video. We swore we'd never go on video.
Yeah, I've been told in no uncertain terms several times in my life that I have a face for radio. So I guess this will be the deciding factor.
I can confirm that you do. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I am Matt. I'm waving my hand so you can see me.
And I'm Jeff. And which hand? Okay, yeah, that's the hand I need to wave.
We will be joined by Chris and Dan from Broaxium in a little bit. They are in the midst of on being on another panel, actually, because they are bells of the social ball. While Jeff and I are wallflowers and content to sit on the bleachers drinking punch. So,
I just assumed that everybody was too intimidated to ask us.
Well, there's always that possibility, although I doubt that. So anyway, this is how Star Wars comics build upon, maintain, and project canon and continuity. Something, if you are a regular listener of our weekly podcast, you have probably heard us talk about. And of course, we thank the organizers of ForceFest 2020 for agreeing to have our panel. This is no big secret. This is actually, we had applied for Star Wars Celebration Anaheim with the idea of using this as a fan panel, in addition to making an application to be on the podcast stage. But thanks to the coronavirus pandemic, we'll have to wait and see if we can get approved for either one of those in 2022. But I think it's such a compelling topic, and it's such an important topic, and often an overlooked topic as well by people who follow Star Wars, that I thought it would be a great fit for this wonderful endeavor and this noble venture. So here we go. Little ground rules. If you have some questions, Jeff, what do the people do?
If you have any questions, just throw them down in the chat window. I would ask that you preface it with the question mark emoji. I think it's a red question mark emoji because I'm simple-minded and I might miss it. I will collect those, and by the end of at the end of the show, we'll answer any that we haven't addressed before then. We'll work on those as we go along.
Okay, well, let's get it rolling. First and foremost, Star Wars comics. There'll be a little bit of a brief history lesson. No need to take notes. There will not be a short quiz next period. This is all extra credit. It's pass, fail, et cetera, and nobody fails. Star Wars comics actually brought Star Wars to the world before Star Wars came out in 1977, because issue 1 of the Marvel comic came out a couple of months before the movie did. And so, people were somewhat aware of what was going on, like, oh, hey, there's a movie coming. Oh, no, I've got some of the story. Although the art in the first 6 issues of Marvel Star Wars Volume 1 did not reflect what was on the screen. And that is, that's not a criticism. I mean, Howard Chaykin and Roy Thomas were working off of the script that they had gotten and some stills, so I thought they did a great job. But that series ran 107 issues, 108 if you count last year's new issue, which was number 108.
Which we do.
And then sort of took a break after 1986, and then they came back heavy and hard in the early 90s via Dark Horse Comics, where they exploded and proliferated, building up the expanded universe all the way up until essentially 2015, when Marvel resumed the license after Disney, had acquired not just Lucasfilm but also Marvel. And since 2015, Marvel's Star Wars comics, and there have been a lot of them, are now considered in canon and in continuity, and they have served as a bridge, if you will, between the films and the books and even the video games. And we've seen some characters created specifically for comics start to gain wider notoriety, such as Dr. Aphra.
Dr. Aphra.
But we've also seen the use of the comics as a way to build upon events in, say, the sequel trilogy, but more so even into the original trilogy and, of course, the prequel trilogy. Obviously, the main reason is ease of use. It's much cheaper to produce a single-issue comic book than it is to produce a 30-minute TV show, or a 2-hour movie. and you can be fairly nimble and on the fly and make changes as needed when you're doing comics. And I think that's one reason why, if somebody, pardon me, if somebody is very deep within the weeds of Star Wars continuity and canon, they are avid Star Wars comics readers, because there's no telling when something
You
may
have to be.
pop up. Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So, I mean, one case in point, for example, when Rogue One, a Star Wars story, came out, that right there blended a lot of stuff from previous elements. I mean, we had Saw Gerrera from the Clone Wars, obviously. We had, Grand Moff Tarkin from the original trilogy. Of course, we had Darth Vader, then we had Bail Organa, we had Mon Mothma, but in the miniseries adaptation that was written by Jody Houser, there's one panel that shows Saw Gerrera with a very young Jyn Erso listening to Mon Mothma, and across the table is Bail Organa with a very young Princess Leia Organa. So right then and there, thanks to that single panel through, from issue number 2 of the Rogue One adaptation, we now know that, Jen and Leia were in the same room together. No acknowledgement, no, oh, hey, you're my age, but little things like that, and it's kind of like icing on the cake, if you will. It's gravy, and it's one of those little moments of, like, you go, oh, hey, cool. So.
And it's one of the things that we talk about on the show a lot, and one of the things that I am always a huge fan of is just the synergy between all of the different media that we get, from the novels to the comics to the films to the cartoons. And Matt is constantly giving me a hard time about the fact that I don't read books that don't have pictures, which is
true.
Partially true. But I just love that.
I couldn't even get him to listen to the Aphra audiobook because he was so overwhelmed by the fact that they were reading words.
Right. Yeah, it was. I didn't have any pictures to go with it, but one of the things that I do love is the fact that things that happen in the comics have repercussions outside of the comics. The one thing that I hate, though, is that we never see any. We don't ever really get any earth-shattering revelations for the main characters in the comics, because it would have to be addressed in the films, and I get that, but that's the one criticism I have of all of it, is that we know nothing's going to happen to Luke Skywalker in an adventure, because we know he had to, show up later on in the films, but never really a problem for the storytelling, because the storytelling team is doing such a good job of handling all of that and still keeping us involved, even though we do know the ultimate outcome. And with that, we'll welcome the guys from Broaxium.
What's up, fellas?
Hey, how you guys doing?
That's it. Thanks everybody for coming to the panel. We've enjoyed our time. I'm kidding.
Oh,
no, we missed it.
We were too late. What did we miss? What did we talk
about? No, we just Jeff and I just did a basic update of why the comics are so important to continuity and canon for Star Wars overall. And I cited for an example, how it can be something small, like Jyn Erso seeing Princess Leia in the second issue of the Rogue One adaptation when they were both kids. But then Jeff brings up the very valid point that, perhaps the negative aspect of the comics is that you really can't do a whole lot with the established characters in terms.
Nothing earth-shattering ever happens.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
Well, yeah, and I think part of that is because, we know these major characters' backstory already. They have certain defined points in space and time where certain things are going to happen to them. So, but now, to that said, Chris, Dan, introduce yourselves, including the podcast.
Daniel.
I am Daniel Miller, bro host to Broaxium. We do a show called Quick Shots on YouTube every Wednesday where we preview the comics. We kind of want to draw you in and get you to read them. We really believe that the comics are a very important piece of connective tissue to the whole continuity of Star Wars. You get a lot of character background. So you kind of get to feel how they, why they do what they do in the movies you watch. You get a better understanding for their psyche. And we do a podcast called Shooting the Poodoo where we like to bring on other podcasters, and we just like to shoot the poodoo about Star Wars, get to know them, what they do with their Star Wars content, how they, bring their ideas to other people.
And we actually did have a question now that you guys have joined us. I would like to address now because I think it's valid for all of us and something to get the ball rolling. Benjamin wants to know what our favorite Star Wars new canon content is.
Ooh. Chris, you go first. Put you on the spot.
Well, I'm just wondering how many of us are going to say Dr. Aphra, because that's my answer.
I was leaving that for Dan. Overall, for the new canon, my favorite content has got to be the Infernal Squad. I love it. I love that dynamic, and I want to see that continued. I'm trying to think what from the comics besides Dr. Aphra.
That's one of the
It's amazing. Aphra is to the comics what Ahsoka has become to Star Wars animation, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Except that I loved Aphra from the beginning, and Ahsoka was an acquired taste.
Yeah, I mean, Aphra definitely, like you just said, was like it wasn't just Ahsoka for me; it was the whole series that I actually had to warm up to. But when it came to the comics, Aphra just really jumped right off the page for me, and I was like, she is cool. Her murder droids are cooler, and I love this trio of awesomeness. It was great. It was great.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, go ahead. You go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to say that's the one thing that I'm waiting for in this current run for Dr. Aphra is like where's Trips and
000 and BT1? Yeah,
where are they at?
I'm going to have to go with what we got in the Too Brief Poe Dameron series, because I really liked how Charles Soule and by extension, Phil Noto for the first 6 or 7 issues, and then Anuel Unzueta really gave us and fleshed out Black Squadron. Well beyond what we saw in The Force Awakens. We saw Snap, we saw Jessica Pava, in The Force Awakens. We didn't really see, we saw Snap, in The Rise of Skywalker, and we saw nothing of Black Squadron in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But in the pages of Poe Dameron, especially that last 6 issues, that final arc, I mean, it was all about where Black Squadron was during, that time frame between the events of The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And then it jumped into after The Last Jedi, and so we got to see them all. And he, one of the characters that was created for Poe Dameron, the series, I think it was issue number 7, and it was Cyril Linda Javos, who
journalist,
was a journalist. But she was also
Matt loved her. Yeah.
Oh, totally. But because Charles captured it correctly, and I've always had this innate interest of what journalism must be like in the Star Wars universe. And she ends up, joining Black Squadron and becoming an integral part, not just for fighting and piloting, but for helping the Resistance get its message out. Essentially jumping the fence from objective journalism to propaganda, to advocacy journalism, and essentially becomes their. I don't want to say becomes their Ernie Pyle, because even Ernie Pyle was biased, but at the same time, Ernie Pyle was also writing about, the Allied fighting person during World War II, not so much, the Axis fighting person, and Cyril Linda did that, and to me, it opened up a whole nother realm of the sequel trilogy that we've never seen anything about. And unfortunately, again, we still didn't see a lot about Black Squadron, even in The Rise of Skywalker, except for the fact that Snap died. And of course, no reference to his marriage.
None whatsoever. Oh, that poor, yeah.
So
that one funny part with Leia, and then he died.
And then he died.
But that's the one thing from Rise of Skywalker that didn't really upset me. Like every story that they hinted at, like Lando and Jannah maybe going off and having their adventures, for Finn's Force sensitivity, which it should have really got on that earlier. Like really since Force. Anyway, they could go into that. We can get a little bit more of that. But I love how the comics did help to flesh out the sequel trilogy era, because we really didn't have anything outside of the the comics. So I'm glad for Resistance, and definitely with the Poe comic and the Age of Resistance books. I love how they had fleshed it out.
Yeah, those were great examples of giving us stories about characters in the sequel trilogy, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the sequel trilogy, I think, is still sort of fenced off yet fertile ground. Because obviously Lucasfilm may have more plans that we are unaware of and not privy to, and so they want to keep that tight. I mean, we do know that Star Wars Adventures from IDW has been, especially the last 3 issues of the first volume, 30, 31, and 32, actually got in and did stories that were set in the sequel trilogy, even with an emphasis, on Finn and an emphasis on Rey, and even an emphasis on Hux and Ben Solo, as the two of them were trying to feel each other out, which may have another meaning in certain areas, but to adjust to Kylo Ren becoming supreme leader. And I think we're going to, when Star Wars Adventures relaunches in October with its new #1 and its second volume, we're going to see more sequel trilogy stories.
Yeah.
Sequel trilogy era stories. I mean, I know the first couple of issues, it's going to focus on Rey and Poe and Finn.
Yeah.
Together, as Rey, does her training with Leia. And then the backup feature is going to be focusing on Kylo Ren and Kylo Ren / Ben Solo.
Mm-hmm. As they should, they got to get on that a bit more with that series. There is a Q&A, you see, from Jared.
I'm collating these. We're going to get to them at the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Although that is another one that we could answer right now, just real quick. It says, Jared says, what comic has been the biggest swing and a miss so far? He says, my vote is a Mace Windu comic, partly for the art, partly for the story, and partly because the Jedi of the Republic tag seems so promising. Something like we're getting with the IDW Clone Wars Battle Tales. And actually, Jared, I'm going to agree with you there. That Mace Windu comic series is the only one that we've gotten so far with the new canon that just completely didn't do anything for me at all. All the rest of them, regardless of how I felt ultimately about it, there were things I could find in them to latch onto that I really enjoyed. But that Mace Windu book just didn't do much for me at all.
I just can't believe that you would be so openly public about the fact that your heart is black and dead like that, Jeff.
It's on my business
and doesn't beat like that. See, whereas I feel the complete opposite. The art on that was by Dennis Cowan, and of course the writer was who's writing? Oh gosh, writing Philadelphia, Rodney Barnes. Rodney Barnes wrote it, and see, I thought it was one of those. I thought that 5-issue miniseries, while it was not as action oriented as some of the previous miniseries, I think it fulfilled an obligation and role that was needed, much the way back in 2015, 2016, the Obi-Wan and Anakin miniseries did. It fleshed out and set foundational constructs for stuff that we saw in the prequel trilogy, leading into the original trilogy. Like with Mace Windu, it was all about how Mace Windu's hubris was telegraphing the fact that the Jedi were completely blind to the danger within their midst. And we saw that because one of the characters was a blind Jedi Padawan who ended up becoming a part of the Inquisitorius.
Yep.
So
they laid a lot of foundation for them to be to show up in different areas. The one thing that I really like and from the Mace Windu series is that charlatan, that guy who was scamming people by saying he's a Jedi Master, and
right.
I thought, oh, that's a good angle. That's something we haven't seen. At least I don't think we haven't seen where someone is lying, saying they're a Jedi Master, and just taking money from people or just like taking advantage of people.
There was recently, Chris, in the Star Wars comic where there was that imposter Luke.
Oh.
Right. That Luke ran into, yeah.
There's a difference, though. That guy got shut down real quick. Really quick.
He got shut down by the man.
Yeah, him and his droid RD. They got shut down real quick. This guy was in business for a while, scamming these poor people. But yeah.
Well, so clearly I'm wrong. Had to happen sooner or later.
No. You have a valid opinion. People did not give the Mace Windu miniseries a fair shot because the art was jarring, especially compared to what had come before. Because Dennis Cowan has a very unique style. And that his art was radically different from the other books that were ongoing. And that's the thing, with the Star Wars comics is they tend to swing from extreme. You have Uncanny Valley on one side to what is that on the other?
Who is this supposed to be?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's safe to say that for the most part, all of us have found something that we really liked in just about everything we've gotten from the comics without any big misses at all. Even the Mace Windu series was not a complete and total miss for me. It was the closest that anything came. So Matt, I know you had some topics you had laid out for us to discuss as far as continuity and everything. So let's dive into that.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I wanted to tout some, especially for people who may not be avid readers. If you are avid readers, some of these will probably, oh yeah, I remember that. But like the entire 12-issue Kanan Maxi series. That came out, I think that was 2015, 2016. And that was part of the initial launch when Marvel got the license back.
Loved it.
And that's a perfect example of the thesis of this entire panel how can we take an existing character, got a strong fan base, from a popular TV show, and do 12 whole issues. Well, Greg Weisman and Pepe Larraz, because it was because Pepe handled the art. Yeah, Pepe Larraz handled the art on that one.
Yep.
And they did so, and it tied in nicely, very neatly from the novel A New Dawn.
Yeah.
And showed us how Caleb Doom became the brigand, Kanan Jarrus.
Right.
And very deftly did flashbacks to Caleb as a Padawan with Depa Billaba, including, when Order 66 went down.
Yeah.
As well as, flash forwards to when he was running, with the Ghost Crew.
Yeah.
But at the same time, throughout all 12 issues, we never lost sight of the fact that it was Caleb / Kanan who was the focus. Yeah. And it gave us insight into his character that, upon viewing again in hindsight, watching Rebels, made a lot of sense and, smoothed out some, perhaps if people had questions about him in that TV show.
Yeah, it filled in a lot of blanks and filled a lot of cracks in that story. And that's one for somebody like me who is a bigger fan of any comic that involves the original trilogy characters. Was a better series than it had any right to be. And somebody said pour one out for Kanan in the chat, and I have to agree, gone way too soon. I could have handled another year of that book at least.
Yeah, I mean,
but it is a great example of how it does it. It ties everything in, and you read that and you get it makes watching the show or the films a much richer experience. I'm sorry, Dan, what were you going to say?
No, the beginning couple of episodes where we experience his point of view on the Purge was intense. Like, I'm reading this comic and I'm just like, wow, like this is Depa Billaba puts her life on the line to save him. And, we learn that Depa Billaba was his master. Well, we know that from the Inquisitor. He told him when he first faces off with him, but you get to see that interaction that they had with their clones. And those first, I think it was 2 to 3 issues where he was a kid, and this kid, Caleb Dube, a Padawan, running from he trusted these guys, that he, just like Ahsoka trusted Rex. That's the kind of relationship he was having with these clones. And they, on a dime, they snap and turn on him. And he's just a kid, you got to think how intense that has to be for somebody. Yeah. Even if he is a Jedi Padawan, he's still a child.
And
crazy.
You can see how that damaged him when they get to the Rex, Gregor, and Wolf,
Commander Wolf,
stories in Rebels, and how he's very apprehensive about them. And then when he has to when he is telling Ezra about his ordeal, And I'm thinking back to the comics and everything that happened, and just the pain in his voice. And Freddie Prinze did an amazing job.
Yeah, he
and
did.
Just explaining his that pain and everything. Oh, it was conveyed so well, and it adds more weight to the comics, and it adds more weight to the show. That's one of the things I love about the Star Wars comics. They add so much weight and just more importance to different scenes or different parts of the movies, that if you just watch the movies, you won't get that same heft. You got to be reading the comics. Anyone out there listening to this, you read the comics, please.
Gemma here, great
Read it,
example. Also, Grand Admiral Sloane is a good example of how they have been fleshing out these new characters throughout different books and comics. Great point, Gemma. I mean, totally. She also has become one of my favorites. Like, I cannot wait to see her in Squadrons. Oh, it's going to be great. Oh, that's another way, how also
in the books,
they come from the book to the comic book page, and now there's going to be one in a video game. Like, it's so amazing the way that they're tying everything together. It's beautiful.
Case in point, the Dark Temple, with Sarah Junda. I mean, the video game, it focuses on Cal Kestis, as a Jedi, but you read the 5-issue miniseries that's set before the events of the video game.
Yeah.
And then you realize, because it's all about Sarah and her role, as a part of the Jedi Order. And then you take what you read in that 5-issue miniseries. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the screen when I realize I should be looking at the camera. And then you take what you read in that miniseries, and then it adds so much more heft to her role in the video game.
Yeah.
And again, it's a perfect way to, because you're not going to have time to do all these different, cut scenes, because it's going to make the game drag. So, that's why comics is a perfect medium, not to serve as filler, because this is not filler by any means. It is solid, foundational based storytelling that kicks off and goes into other mediums. I mean, Chris, you had talked about, for example, Mustafar. When I was a kid, I'm an old guy. I'm already 50. And I remember, having conversations in the schoolyard after when just Star Wars came out, because we had been reading in Starlog and other magazines about how the guy in the Darth Vader suit was like horribly scarred because he was, pushed into a lava planet. Yeah. And then you get Charles Soule, who spends the a significant portion of Darth Vader Volume 2 setting up Mustafar. Yeah. I mean, 9-year-old me was ecstatic when we got to see Mustafar in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
9-year-old me was over the moon, when I'm 49 years old and reading Darth Vader Volume 2 going, oh my God, it's the temple. So, that's a great point right there.
When I saw Rogue One, I injured a good friend of mine when I saw Rogue One and his castle showed up for the first time. I went to see it with her, and I was punching her, and she goes, "Why are you hitting me?" I'm like, "That's Darth. You don't know. I'm sorry. You just watched the movies. I'm sorry." So yeah,
he is violent.
Yeah.
When he's excited. I wasn't with him sitting. I knew better not to sit next to him during the Rise of Skywalker. We met up there together, but I was not gonna sit next to him. I can't remember who it was that sat next to you, but I remember. I think you grabbed his leg. Yeah, it was Jim. You grabbed his leg. Poor guy had a bruise. He got too excited.
It happens. Don't sit next to me when I'm watching Star Wars for the first time.
And it happens a few times when I'm reading the comics too. Matt and I will text one another the day when we're reading the comics. Like, did you see this? Oh my god! I have a hard time waiting until we record to actually talk about some of the stuff that happens.
So true. That's very true.
There was a time when usually about once a week I was in South Philly, and I would pop by Atomic City Comics, and that's where I met Chris. And we started talking about Star Wars comics, and it got so animated that people in the store were just like, yo, man, is this guy bothering you? Do we need to get him out of the store? Or,
in a minute.
And Chris is like, Chris is like, no, he's cool. Don't worry about it. So.
Yeah.
I'd say this latest run for Vader is phenomenal, and it adds so much to the Phantom Menace. Just to the prequel trilogy as a whole. With the Handmaid, it's like it's doing, dude. Like it's doing the same thing that Queen's Peril and oh my God, what was the first one? It's Queen's Peril and
Queen's Shadow. Yeah.
It's doing it does the same thing for those books. It makes the Handmaidens they give them so much more depth.
It makes me want to read those two books. I feel bad that I haven't read them. I need to now. Yeah.
Because that really, like, reading these comics, like after I read those books or audiobooks, reading those comics, like, it's like, oh, they still like are holding that. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that hasn't watched it or hasn't read the books. Read the comics.
It's so good.
Can't say it
really
enough.
Good. I mean, the flashback that he has in the series.
Reading these comics is not homework. It's not like, oh, I got to read these to understand. Like, no, it's to read these to just make your experience that much more fuller. You got to read these comics. It's not work. It is all love. Like, it is fantastic storytelling.
And I think that's a wider reflection of the fact that, Greg Pak is a masterful storyteller. He has been for the longest time. And he has a very deep and profound understanding of the prequel trilogy. The same way with, say, Michael Moretzi. I mean, he wrote he's been writing a lot of stuff
right now.
The Battle Tales. I mean, we are getting viewpoints from the clones from the prequel trilogy era. That is, I mean, some of this stuff. I messaged Michael one day. I said, "Man, are you like being graded by a philosophy professor here? Because I mean, this is like really deep stuff.
Seriously deep. Yeah,
you are putting the ages in the all ages sobriquet for this book, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and that's the Star Wars Adventure series. I mean, and I have not gotten into them. I've gotten into the Battle Tales. I've read Vader's Castle. Because like around Halloween, I wanted something spooky, and they were really cool. But I really want to start getting into. I have them all. I just never really started reading them. It was the Star Wars Adventure comics, and they, like you said with Morici right now, he's getting super deep with some of this, especially the last one that we just that was just released.
Yeah. I mean, he's going deep into the concept and the notion of free will.
Yep, exactly.
Like, is this one aimed towards children?
It is all ages.
It's the all ages. Yeah.
But and that's the thing about Star Wars Adventures is, I mean, it's not as a big a seller as, say, the Marvel books. I mean, it's a good month. It's moving 8,000 copies, right. But that's okay because they have almost like this amazing freedom with Star Wars Adventures because it is. Let's be upfront. It is canon. The stories in Star Wars Adventures are considered canon.
Absolutely.
That goes for the rabbit too.
Exactly,
yes,
Jackson, my boy. Jackson is my man.
Jackson is back.
But they have such fun, and we talked to the editor Denton J. Tipton a couple of months back.
I'm sorry, one mistake. Steve, no, we don't. No, we do not. Sorry,
yes, we do.
Steven, we do. Chris is wrong. Nicole, please mute Chris. But Star Wars Adventures, is able to move up and down and side to side. It is the timey-wimey Doctor Who of Star Wars stories. Yeah. And so it's not, if you've not read Star Wars Adventures, it is not uncommon to one issue be all about Princess Leia, and then the next issue to be all about Poe Dameron, and then you go all the way back to Amilyn Holdo, and yet and again they get all interlinked. I mean, there's an issue, I think it's Star Wars Adventures 25, and in it it's Leia and Amilyn Holdo on Coruscant, when they're young,
yep.
And I mean, and it's not just a correlation, it shows how tight their relationship is and why it's the way it is in The Last Jedi. But yet it also builds on that novel, Leia, Princess of Alderaan by Claudia Gray.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It's all connected, and the story group is doing a fantastic job of keeping everything together. I love what they're doing.
It is something that I feel like was missed when we were getting extra content before Disney bought out everything. You know, I was reading the books. I wasn't too much into the comics at that point. I didn't know much of the Dark Horse stuff. You know, I had a couple of like comics that friends would give me, but I never really dove into them. I was all into the novels at that point. And then when Disney bought it out, that's when I started collecting these comics, because it was just how it was so weaved into what they were doing with everything. It's just been so amazing.
And
they made it so that if you want to get the whole story, you've got to read and take in every single thing. Yeah. But like Chris said, it never feels like homework.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
But at the same time, though, it's not forced. I mean, you know, if you don't read the comic, it's not like you're missing the key aspect of the story. But if you have read,
I don't read the novels, I can still enjoy the comics.
Yeah, but
exactly.
You know, that's why I call you every night, Jeff, and I read to you for 20 or 30 minutes from the novels, you know, and you fall asleep.
Yep, I doze off after minute 2 because your voice is so soothing.
It's so soothing.
So yes. But one thing that Matt had mentioned when we were getting ready for this was the I believe it was a Poe Dameron book involving Princess Leia's wardrobe.
Yeah.
The fact that they make something as innocuous as clothing tie into what has come before.
Yeah. Yes.
Just blows my mind.
Yeah, and Amy Wishman, who co-hosts, you know, Star Wars Splash Page Young Padawans with myself and Micah and Emily, you know, she rightfully pointed it out. We wish she could be here. She was unable to, but she is here in spirit. But, you know, that whole thing was essentially Leia was trying to find some information out. So she took her mother's wardrobe, Padme's wardrobe, to Cato Nemoidia to be stored. And ruse.
Yeah.
Get some information.
That's right.
So right then and there, I mean, you have just melded all 3 trilogy eras.
Yeah.
That's right.
With dresses.
Right.
With clothes.
Yeah. That is amazing.
Good stuff. So we did have one question, just apropos of nothing. We did have one question earlier. Someone asked how many issues we think the main title can go before they catch up to the Return of the Jedi, since there was so much less time in between Empire and Jedi.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's enough stories to go around that I think they could take it. It could go as long as it wants to.
Right.
At a certain point, you know, without really having any trouble.
Way more than
somebody's saying I think 25.
Way more than that. Yeah. Because it doesn't have to always follow Luke and Leia and Lando and you know, and Chewie on their adventures. You know, there are other things going on within that universe that they could, you know, do little side stories on it and make things go a little further.
Three words, Chris. Many Bothans died.
Oh, many Bothans.
Yeah,
I always say Manny Bothans. I'm thinking of the Tag and Bink comic. Oh, Manny Bothans. Oh, he was courageous. But I would say, I don't know about 25, but I would double that. I would double that, maybe like 50.
I think what they're going to be doing with the story group is they will ultimately make the call. Like, all right, we've gone as far as we can go. I mean, that's the beauty, you know, especially if you look at the Marvel side. You know, right now. You know, because all the books are now set that Marvel is publishing. Bounty Hunters, Darth Vader, Star Wars, and Dr. Aphra are all set within the same time period. They are all set after The Empire Strikes Back and before the Return of the Jedi, or Return of the Jedi. Are they gonna cross over? Possibly, but probably not. But here's the thing, you know, like you said, there's so many side stories that can be told. You know, we can have a story arc in Star Wars about Rogue Squadron reforming and doing its training. You know, with Wedge as a spearhead on that. And that right there, we could see, and we are actually, we're going to see Shara Bay in an upcoming issue, I think in November's issue of Star Wars, with Wedge, Dr. Aphra. I want to, keep Dr. Aphra free of everything. I want Dr. Aphra to stay where it is, the weird side of the Star Wars universe.
Absolutely.
Bounty Hunters, recent controversy aside with the way Tonga was treated, Bounty Hunters is at the moment probably the only book aside from Aphra where they can go absolutely nuts with no regard to the timeline, because as it is right now, there is only one character in this first arc that has a fixed point in time and space where he has to be, and that's Boba Fett.
Oh, I thought it was
okay. That's Boba Fett.
Right.
Because right now, Boba Fett is still hauling around Slave One, and he's got Han Solo and Carbonite in the trunk. Yeah. Once that gets resolved, it is devil may care on what they do, because it is literally its own bubble.
That's right. Yeah.
So.
And I think that story is going to bounce around too, because if you remember that Empire Ascendant, I think that's the name of that one-shot issue, where they previewed everything that was going to be coming out in 2020. There was a story where Han hired Valance to like cart around this kid, like take this kid somewhere or something like that, or protect him.
Oh yeah.
So there's going to be a flashback story. At least I hope. And I know we have a question about, and this is one thing that I've always been wondering about, like with that run between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, is, and this is Mike's question, is what happened to the Ord Mantell story? Like every time a new arc started, I was like, is this going to be the Ord Mantell story? Are we finally going to get it? And then it just never happened.
Yeah, so, and Jonathan did say that it was covered in the daily comics that they in Boba Fett's first print appearance, but in the new canon, we don't know yet.
But here's the thing, though, is, they are not averse to flashbacks. So there's nothing that could be said that, that we don't see Luke having returned to the fleet or something, and, getting a secondhand story from Chewie about what happened at Ord Mantell.
Right.
Sounds like a good idea for Star Wars Adventures.
That's probably the place where it would appear. But I mean, there's so much story potential for what's going on between Empire and Return of the Jedi, that, I mean, there is just so much. And, and then again, they can still pull in from previous characters that aren't necessarily from the movies. I mean, what about Ray Sloan? Why not bring her back?
Yeah.
She's there.
We need some more of those stories. I mean, I know we're getting that in Squadrons we talked about earlier, but
we've got Sana. We've got Sana. Sana's coming back in Dr. Aphra, I think in November.
Very happy.
So I mean, so it's there's so much potential for stories to be told. So
yeah, absolutely. Someone was asking about. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Will the Bounty Hunter comic be used to bring Cad Bane or Embo back? Do we think that? I would love that.
Love Cad Bane.
Cad Bane and Hondo and my favorite characters from the Clone Wars.
Yeah,
and I would come back.
Yeah. Is it canon? I know that there was some kind of standoff between Cad Bane and Boba, at least in the like those previous shots from the Clone Wars cartoon. I don't know if that's considered canon or not, or if Cad Bane is dead or what. Like, we haven't gotten any kind of information on that.
Because what if he popped in on The Mandalorian?
I would love that.
Oh, speaking of the Mandalorian, this is not my observation, but one of the Facebook groups I'm in, one of the Star Wars comics Facebook groups I'm in, pointed this out, that in the first volume of Marvel Star Wars comics, this is the 77 to 86 run, there was a gang called the Rick Duel Gang.
Yeah.
And
folks, this is how I know I'm out of my element with this crew, because these guys know exactly what he's talking about right now, and I have no idea.
He was talking about it before.
But it showed pictures. It showed pictures of this gang. So 3 of them, and then it showed pictures of some of the Mandalorians' carbonite hauls, and all 3 of the people in carbonite look just like the 3 people in the Rick Duel Gang.
Yep.
That's all I've seen of it. But I mean, boom, right then and there. So, who knows that there's always the possibility, Dave Filoni said it best. What, there's truth in legends?
Oh yeah.
We're seeing that right now, like with Dominataga in the ongoing Dr. Aphra, in the new volume of Dr. Aphra. That's a Legends character, and she's actually coming in November.
Yeah.
And then
they mentioned her a little bit in at least not by name, I don't think, but they just say like Auntie in the issue of Aphra.
Which is why I think and of course
Ronan Tag. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then don't forget Greg Pak, during the San Diego Comic-Con Lucas film literature panel, he teased the fact that he was going to have a tie-in in his Vader series to the sequel trilogy. And the solicit for Darth Vader #7, which is out in November, finds, we see Darth Vader's going to be on Mustafar, but he's going to be facing the onslaught of a mysterious Sith assassin. Who do you think that is? Anybody? Somebody who doesn't know how to deal with large snakes in the desert? Leaves their ship behind for 40 years for Rey to find?
You think they're bringing him in?
Possibly.
That would be so cool. And they should. They need to start bringing those guys in. I am all for that. What's that guy's name again? I forgot what his name was.
Oh, come on. Jared, do you remember what was the Sith assassin? Ochi. Thank you, Jared.
Ochi. And someone else asked if Arvel Krenit has been featured in the comics, and I cannot remember. I'm drawing a blank on that one.
No, yeah, Jonathan, if they have, I've overlooked it. But that's a character I think that could be definitely featured for sure.
Definitely. So,
we got about
for somebody, let me ask you guys this. This is something for the crew. Anybody who's trying to enjoy the panel who has not started reading any of the comics, what storyline would you guys recommend they start with to kind of ease them in?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
You going?
No, you could go ahead. You start.
My thing is read whatever. Read. It doesn't matter. Wherever you get in is where you get in. If you enjoy
it's
that,
gonna be good.
Right? Yeah. If you enjoy that, read more going past that timeline in the story, or go backwards, or wherever. Like whatever gets you in, gets you in. If I were to just give my my opinion on where I would start, I would go with the Lando series.
I was just about to say, it depends on which era you're a fan of. If you're a fan of the OT, start with the Lando series.
Yeah.
Prequel, start with the Anakin and Obi-Wan series.
Yes.
And if you're a fan of the sequel trilogy, I would suggest the second Poe Dameron arc. Skip the first one, or at least skip the last issue of the first one.
Is the first one with the egg? Yeah.
Yeah.
The two giant Godzilla creatures fighting each other?
Yeah, that weird space Pokemon.
The one that apparently M. Night Shyamalan wrote.
Yeah.
Although truth to power, they did a remarkable recovery with the second arc in Poe Dameron.
I said the second one, yeah.
I totally agree with you with the Obi-Wan and Anakin comic. I mean, Charles Soule, anything with Charles Soule, I would say pick if you want to read something really good. I mean, all of them. I when we were talking about what comic series didn't really do it for us, I couldn't really think of one. I've had a little love for all of them. Maybe some weren't as great as the others, but the Obi-Wan and Anakin, you got to realize Charles was able to do a lot of the master apprentice stuff between Obi-Wan and Anakin and Palpatine, and then we get to see in the second arc of Darth Vader after Kieran Gillen's run and his run, more of that Vader and Palpatine relationship. Charles got to really touch on a lot of good stuff. And that's what I would recommend is some Charles Soule action if you want to jump in. But all of it.
If you see Charles Soule's name on anything, you should automatically read it anyway.
That's and Charles, because we've had Charles on the show several times, and he has always repeated that his dream Star Wars project would be doing a Palpatine miniseries, or maxi series. And I think given how well he wrote Ben Solo, Kylo Ren. he would just tear up a Palpatine series.
Yeah.
I got to say, looking back, if you're jumping in, Alia's right. If you're a prequel trilogy fan, definitely go with this third volume of Darth Vader. And what I'm hoping is that because it's the Vader is selling pretty well, and what I'm really hoping is that Marvel and the story group will realize that there is a real thirst and hunger for prequel trilogy era content, and that we'll get a Handmaiden's mini or maxi series.
that would be so good.
It would be awesome. Oh my god!
Now, like, where would you put it? Like, with them as what do they call themselves? The Amidalans? Like, would you put it in that era where they're trying to find this information?
Love that. The Amidalans. Love that.
I would change that name.
Yeah, I would change the name. Yeah, I think
we'll say the Pat bites.
I think you could put it at any point between when she died and when Vader confronts him, and you're going to get a great story.
I mean, and I agree, because it's one of those stories, one of those concepts that could easily jump from the Queen Shadow, Queen's Peril era to post sequel trilogy era, and back and forth as needed, almost like an espionage book.
Yeah.
So.
And that will work well with what's hopefully going to happen soon with the Cassian Andor series, because that's going to be a spy.
Yeah.
We only got him in K2SO book one shot, right?
Yeah, the one shot. But what a one shot it was, because it showed us how they met.
Yeah.
And again, that's another example of using the medium to explain something, for example, another good example was the C-3PO one shot, C-3PO and the Phantom Limb.
How he got his
aside from the fact that it took, forever to come out because it kept on getting delayed. But then when we got it, it was so good because, it set the stage for 3PO being not just a nuttering nabob of, but actually an accomplished spy master.
Yeah.
That's been maybe my favorite revelation from all of the comics that they put into canon is C-3PO being a spy master, having a network of spies that he is coordinating. It just blew my mind, but makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I wish they would have touched on that just a little bit in the movies, just to let people know, like, he's not just there because of nostalgia. Like, he's got a reason that he's on the command deck with Leia.
He's there for a legitimate reason. He wasn't there on the command deck just because, I have a sentimental attachment to Goldenrod. No, he's there because he's got a network of spy droids throughout the galaxy, and I need him there to help transmit data and to parse data. Again, that's the beauty of the comics. But my one recommendation, though, if you're an original trilogy person, the Princess Leia miniseries. It's a 5-issue miniseries. Came out in 2015, and it basically showed her going around trying to collect and find those Alderanians who were off-world when the planet was destroyed. And of course, it gives us Yvonne Verlaine, a really strong character whom I like a lot. She's really awesome. And there is one scene in that miniseries where she goes to Naboo. And she, she sees Padme, in like this big stained glass presentation. And then but what the comic does is it shows, the Padme in the stained glass. And then the next panel shows Padme looking down at Leia. And then she's back, and then it's back to normal. But the real scene that got to me was it shows, this, Leia walking into the hangar. And then superimposed behind her is Maul, and she just says, "So cold, so cold."
Yeah. Like, here we go. I love that.
But it's a good miniseries. It was written by Mark Waid, illustrated by Terry and Rachel Dodson, and it gives us, a peek into how Leia is such a logistics mastermind. And is willing to get down in the mud, in the blood, in the beer with the troops to ensure that the rebellion goes forward.
If there was one thing that, and there are many things that, they did right as far as when Disney took over, but what they did for the Leia character was phenomenal.
Yeah.
What they've done with her, they've really gave us so much more layers and really turned her into, like, we've seen her, talking to the troops and the pilots and everything in Empire Strikes Back. But like in Return of the Jedi, she was Han's sidekick. Like, when they were at that briefing, like right before the Battle of Endor started. I just love how the comics like show her as this confident leader, and
which is
like
what she is.
such a great job with it. Yeah.
So totally.
So we have 5 minutes left. One question that came in that I did want to ask you guys, because it has to do with the future of Star Wars comics. Someone asked if we were seeing a trend with less one-shots and miniseries in favor of the 4 ongoing series. Do you guys think that's going to be a trend, or Matt may have a little more insight into this with his connections? But I don't know. We haven't seen a lot of one-shots. I don't know how much of that has to do with the current state of comics publishing with the pandemic and everything. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
I hope not. I hope that there are more one-shots, open up that universe more. Please give me Star Wars every day.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Chris, obviously. I just think we have a new era about to happen. Whether it's being delayed by the pandemic or not, we've got the High Republic coming. And we've got a whole new era of people. Yeah, and it's going to be a whole new era of characters. And I think even the movies are going to be going that way. I think they're going to be touching in this new era of the High Republic, because this is a whole new canvas for them where they don't have to worry about the continuity of where the original characters were set in and having to build off of something that was made 40 years ago. They can do, they have the setting, the theme, and everything, but now they have all new characters, except Yoda would be young in this era. He'd be like just a knight.
He'd only be what? 700 years old?
Yeah,
spring chicken.
A mere 700.
And so would Maz Kanata.
I know. I was even thinking about Maz being in. Oh man! We've got a lot coming up, and I think right now, like, they're just giving us. I don't know. I feel like they're gearing up for this new era that's going to be hitting soon.
Right.
Yeah, right now, the only Star Wars comics that we know about that are still missing in action is the 5-issue The Rise of Skywalker adaptation. I'm hearing that it might start coming out in January. That's not official, not by a long shot, until we see it in a solicit or we see it, in previews world. When we see it there, then we know it's official. We know that that there's going to be, like you guys said, the High Republic. IDW is going to be doing a series written by Daniel Jose Older. Love Daniel Jose Older.
Yeah.
And then Kevin.
He did Last Shot.
He did. Yeah, he did. He also did my favorite story in the From a Certain Point of View anthology about the stormtrooper who was like, yeah, that was the droid, but nah, the hell with it, and just rides off into the desert on his on his bantha. But and then we've got the Mandalorian tie-ins coming. IDW I know is doing a $7.99 one shot. Don't know anything about it. Don't know what the creative team is. I do know that Peach Momoko is doing the main cover art for once, so that means people can actually afford to buy a Peach Momoko cover. Marvel is going to be doing something with the Mandalorian. Don't know what yet. I for one, I would love to see a return to some more miniseries. That's
I've got one for you, Matt. I've got a miniseries for you, Matt. We need Zora Bliss and Poe's relationship fleshed out. I need to see what is between them two. That would be a great 5-issue series.
Oh my God. Yeah. Cause I've read the novel, and Alex Segura, he did a great job with the novel. And he's written Archie comics before. I mean, I think he's president. He's vice president. He's vice president over at Archie. He's a good guy. I know him really well. He would write a Poe Dameron or a Zori Bliss Poe Dameron comic book just like that.
Because
he'd knock it out of the park.
Just like their banter between each other, I was like, I need to know why that's that. Like, I need to know. I got deeper into that. Yeah.
Gemma, yes, the IDW books are canon.
We have 1 minute left. So, final question for everyone. Make it quick. Make your answer quick. What is your favorite Star Wars comic being published right now, and why is it Dr. Aphra?
I hate Ronan Tag with a passion. He is just an intergalactic space jerk. But I love that character. I love what they're doing with him. Yeah, it's Aphra. That's
Dan,
tough.
you're up. Quick. I'm going to play hardball here.
Aphra. Aphra is because of the murder droids. BT1 and 000 have always just her and her Indiana Jones like way. She's like Indiana Jones, but she's like Han Solo. I mean, the way she is, she's like this archaeologist, but she's selfish. She's so awesome. And then, but like she does have a heart. She ends up showing it. She's just a mixed bag of awesomeness. Like
everything, Matt.
Yeah.
I love them all, but I love Aphra, and I am not shy about saying that I just cannot wait for the inevitable reunion with Magna Tolvin.
Oh,
that's a good.
We have reached the end of our 1 hour session. So,
bro, yeah.
I want to thank everyone in the chat.
Thank you.
Had great questions, great.
Yeah, and don't forget you can catch Bro Axiom Wednesday mornings, catch Star Wars Splash Page later Wednesday mornings.
Yeah, Bro Axiom on that YouTube. Just hit subscribe and you'll get fresh previews, spoiler free on Wednesdays.
Spoiler free.
All right, we're not broadcasting, but we are.
We're still broadcasting. It's still recording.
No,
I see it.
Said stuff.
Oh, okay.
We're not broadcasting.